Hi there. Thanks for joining us today. This is Leslie Karen Hammond, the Empowering Story Whisperer. Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. This is week 3 of a commitment that I'd made to get online every week and do a Facebook Live. So for any of you who've ever made that kind of a commitment to social media, you know that it takes a lot. Even on bad hair days or when they have no makeup days, whatever the case may be, times you want to just kind of like weasel on out of it, but gotta do it, made the commitment. So I'm really excited about this week's topic, which is managing expectations. And I always have to laugh because it never fails. There is something that comes up through the course of my day which is so applicable to what needs to be shared or taught. So I am certain you'll be able to relate to this topic of managing expectations, because who likes to be disappointed? Do you like to be disappointed? I certainly don't. There were a whole lot of years when it seemed like disappointment was the norm, and it got to the point where I was chronically disappointed and I stopped having expectations, because having an expectation was almost an automatic guarantee for being disappointed. And who needs that? You've probably already got a ton of stuff on your plate and there's not a lot of room for anything else. So when you plan something, you really expect it to work out the way that you anticipate. And when it doesn't, it can be an enormous challenge. So especially if you are in like the entrepreneurial realm, or you're starting to go into business for yourself, and you invest a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, or like money and emotion, and you give everything that you've got to something. And you're kind of behind the sidelines, like nail biting and just praying, oh, please let this work out, please let this work out. And you don't leave a lot of room for possibility, because there's just so much invested. Feels like do or die every single time. So so much compassion. My heart goes out for you. And my intent is that you'll be able to take something from this episode and, hey there, I think that's Lori, and be able to take this and apply it to what you do every day. So managing expectation, whether you want to call it expectation or, anticipation, it is so easy to get really wrapped around the axle on things. And one word that goes hand in hand in the same sentence that a lot of times people don't think about is the word control. So a lot of times, and it may be your situation, or you may have seen it somewhere else, is that you may not have a lot of control in some areas of your life, and when you plan things out, that the execution of that and taking pride in what you've planned going right is something that you really try and have control over. So, prime example, way back when, decades ago, when I was in an unhealthy marriage, and my boss at work did not like me. I was such a hard worker. Really the only place that I felt that I had control in my life was in my work ethic. So I worked so hard, I ended up making him look bad, and therefore he made my life miserable. So not only in just controlling what I did, the other place that I felt I had some little tiny bit of control in life was when I planned family events, meaning like a vacation, or planning a nice dinner, whether it was Thanksgiving or something for a holiday. I took great pride, and I was really attached to the outcome going like perfectly. So for prime example, there was a vacation that we took when my son was young, and I think it was to Six Flags, maybe down in South Jersey maybe. And I had everything planned out to the T. Everything needed to happen just the right way. And if anything ever just fell apart, or there's always an abundance of things that can go wrong, I got so upset because where I thought I had control, it didn't work out that way. And I expected to have a particular outcome. I wasn't so attached financially to it, but I was really attached emotionally to the outcome. Didn't leave any room for anything else to happen. And it can be really tough. So here's an invitation for you. And let's see. I'm counting the words. Okay, so 3 of my favorite words. Detachment to outcome. That is one of the best possible ways that you can, quote unquote, manage expectations, is by loosening up what you feel needs to happen. So detachment from outcome is not something that it's, well, okay, so maybe for some, you can just practice it immediately, like going cold turkey with no sugar, no gluten, no coffee. But for most people, this particular topic, it takes, or practice rather, it takes some easing into. You really have to kind of go slow. So for example, if you believe that you've given your all, you've done your best, and then you put your thing out there in the world, that everything will work out the way, that it needs to. A very good example is this thing that I've been doing with these Facebook Lives. So every week I write a blog post. Every week I do a Facebook Live, which is around the blog post. Every week I create a free gift that complements the teachings that are in the Facebook Live. And then every week I send out an email to the people on my list to say, hey, check this out. Don't know if you caught us, but here's some really great content and an awesome freebie to check out, to let people know. Well, there's a lot of tech things that go on in the back end, and there's been a couple of times, I'm still working out some of the tweaks, but I thought I had everything like just so, and then surprise, something doesn't work out like I thought it would. So I'm going to circle back around to when I'd mentioned earlier that sometimes there tends to be lessons for what the topic is for the day. So today, if you're just like hopping on now, we are discussing how to manage expectations. So to apply this like really specifically to my day today, I had an outline for everything that I wanted to get done, and then this like technical, it was like a technical Hiroshima. Everything from being on the phone with my internet provider, and of course that when you call those places, you're on hold for a while. And so it started off with the internet provider, and then it went to the cell phone provider because I was having a problem with that. Then there was something going on with the hosting company and like one of the web pages. It was just like bam, bam, bam. Everything stacked one on top of the other. I expected to get a lot more work done today, but I had to completely surrender to the fact that, okay, I know this stuff has to get done, and for any of you out there who are solopreneurs, you get what I'm talking about here when you have to do a lot of stuff on your own. You understand. And sometimes you just have to like surrender to the process. It doesn't mean give up. Surrender and giving up, two very different things. So the difference, let's talk about that for a minute. So the difference, between surrendering and giving up is that, when you give up, you're basically just like quitting. You're just like saying, enough is enough, I quit. Well, when you surrender, most of the time that means that you do so knowing that you've done everything you possibly can. Case in point today, I knew that I did everything I possibly could. I got on the phone with everyone who I needed to, excuse me, to try and work things out. And I got tech help wherever I could. And ultimately, things came together. It was a problem that had to be addressed. It took up more of my day than I really wanted it to, but c'est la vie. That's what happened. I'm going to grab my water here one second. And so sometimes things are just, they're just going to turn out that way. The universe has a way of presenting us with things that will be helpful for us to learn. And if you would have saw my face earlier, it was like really grinding my teeth and, quite frankly, being pretty upset that it didn't go the way that I wanted to. However, surrender to the situation. So some other ways to manage expectations is to realize, okay, here you go. Are you ready for this? You're probably not going to like this, but to realize that you don't have the control you thought you did. There are a finite amount of things that are within our control. And primarily, it is how we feel, how we react or act. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I can't control how I feel. Sometimes things just come up. Well, when you're consciously aware, then you do have the ability to control how you feel. So today, for example, I'll be the first to admit there were some times when I was pretty stressed out, throwing out some F-bombs and not a happy camper. But I'd realized, you know what? There's nothing I can do. This needs some attention, and I have to give it my attention. I have to try and fix the problem. Regardless of whatever else was going on, I needed to take care of this. So once you realize that, in fact, you really don't have anywhere near as much control as you think you do, just imagine what kind of level of stress that could reduce. I mean, just the realization of that, I'm feeling my shoulders go down just a little bit, because you can't control how other people think. You can invite them or plant seeds or offer suggestions, but you can't make someone or control the way someone thinks, unless maybe you're part of the government and some secret tests and there's drugs involved. That's a whole nother topic. I digress quickly. But for most of us, you can't control how people think. You can't control how people feel. You can't control how people act. So the sooner that you realize you don't have control over all of those things, it will really impact the way you interact with people, the way that you're engaging. And it'll also help you understand that other people have their own stuff going on, and sometimes they are in a place you may have been several days, weeks, months, or years ago, where, depending on where they are in their path, and depending how they feel about taking responsibility for what they do and how they feel and what they say, you may be miles apart or miles ahead of them and where they are. So when we talk about managing expectations, there's a few different places in life where you can take a look at that. So one would be with your own stuff, your own thought patterns, your own behaviors, how you plan your day, how you expect things to go. And then the other piece of that is how you manage expectations when it comes to other people. If you've ever found yourself in a situation where you were expecting someone else to deliver on something and they didn't, that can be an enormous sense of frustration, especially if you're a manager or if you are a business owner, CEO, if you employ people and you expect them to do something in a certain way and they don't. So let's talk about that for a moment. One question you have to ask when someone doesn't deliver exactly what you were expecting, it's important to go back and take a look at how clearly you defined your expectation. So did you let them know exactly what it was you were looking for? Like prime example, years ago, and when I was in the construction industry, you'd be surprised how different my definition of clean was versus the guy that was doing the cleaning. So talk about a difference and what the outcome was. The same thing goes with the people that you interact with on a regular basis. If you ask someone to take out the trash and you expect them to, take the trash out from the house and then bring the cans out to the street, you might want to make sure that they understand exactly the same things that you do. Because maybe they think taking out the trash just means, taking the stuff out to the street and not emptying the things in the house. Same thing goes with, take for example, a housekeeper. If you were to hire a housekeeper and you gave them really specific instructions on what you wanted, or specific so you thought, and then you leave them to do their thing, you come back afterwards and you don't see what you were expecting, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, how clear was I? Were you making any assumptions anywhere along the line? Guilty of making assumptions. I've done it. I think everyone has. And it's important to understand that not everyone thinks the same way that you or I do on any particular thing. In fact, I'm sure there are dozens of topics where you and I think very differently. We each have our own experience that we bring to the table, and all of that forms how we think about things, how we show up, how we act. So really important to clarify what you're thinking, what you expect, and if it doesn't work out the way that you expected it to, before you start, pouncing on someone, because it's super easy to do that, is just take a moment, take a step back, and reflect on what you asked for. And take a look and see if there was any place where you could have been a bit clearer. I've always found, excuse me, I'm going to take another sip of water here. I've always found that if I didn't get something I expected, when I take ownership for my responsibility, my piece of the equation, and do that first, that makes a world of difference in how someone else will take, I don't want to necessarily call it criticism, but how they take the question or, my inquiry into why things weren't the way that I expected. So if you were to start off, and like I've done before, is saying, this is what I was envisioning, but I must have not conveyed this particular point because this didn't happen. And when you do that, you kind of put people at ease a little bit. They don't automatically go on the defense, because a lot of times people can so quickly go into defense mode. So we've got about 11 minutes left here. So a couple things that I want to share with you. One is, I'd mentioned earlier, there's a free gift that goes with every one of these Facebook Lives. So please make sure that you go to LeslieKarenHammond.com/3 Managing Expectations. So again, LeslieKarenHammond.com 3/ Managing Expectations, and there'll be some great pointers for how you can take this material that we've covered today and apply it for yourself. So I want to circle back a little bit. Earlier we touched on detaching from outcome. So this is enormous, enormous, enormous. I can't speak enough about this. And part of it goes back to knowing that you did your best and then just letting go. Because if you don't do your best, then you're going to be beating yourself up, and the inner critic is going to step in, and you'll be like kicking yourself in the backside, and it's just going to get ugly. And it's going to take a lot of your energy and a lot of your attention. And if you're anything like me, you probably don't get enough sleep as it is. You probably have a lot of stuff on your plate, and you just don't need to be contending with crap like that. I mean, truth be told, really, you don't need it. So if you believe you are showing up at your best at any given moment, then that has to be enough. It has to be. If you're having an off day, if you're not feeling good, like my sinuses are kind of burning a little bit right now, and I'm tired, but I'm here. And I know that everything I'm doing right now, I'm giving my best. So if you can show up to everything that you do, like giving your best at that moment, that's all you can do. You can't give anything more, and you can't expect any more of someone else than their best. Now, granted, your best, just like my best, will differ at any given time based on the stress level, based on the amount of sleep and what we've eaten, the amount of caffeine that's in the system. There are all kinds of things that dictate what you view your level of your best is. But for me, like getting on here and doing this video, I'm like giving you all my heart. I'm being authentic. I'm telling things like it is. I'm not holding back. And to me, this is giving my best. Even though everything may not be perfect, that's okay. It doesn't matter because it's progress and the effort is being made. And frankly, I'm detaching from the outcome. Would I love to see, like 5,000 people watching this while I'm live? Well, of course I would. You bet. But that's okay if there aren't 5,000 people. It's okay if there aren't 500 people. Okay, I'm going to be real here. It's okay if there aren't 50 people. But it's the discipline of showing up and realizing I'm doing my best and then saying, you know what? I'm detaching from the outcome and I am trusting. Now, just in case you may be thinking, well, that kind of sounds like a cop-out and, you're just, for those of you who might be very spiritually inclined, thinking, oh, are you like practicing The Secret and you're just going to do a lot of prayer and hope that everything works out? No, that's not the case. You need to do your part. I need to do my part. Everybody needs to do their part. So detachment to outcome works the best when you trust that you've done everything that you can do and then you let go. If you don't put your part of the work in, then it's then you're really asking for way too much. There's always going to be a little extra effort that's required, a little bit more. Oh, hey, Allison, thanks for joining. There's always going to be something that you need to do that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable. And oh, hey, Tessa, thanks for joining. We're coming to the close here, but you can always catch us on the replay again. So just talking about managing expectations and right now, detachment from outcome and how for those of us who are, really spiritually inclined, that we still need to do our part. So the detachment from outcome works best when you've done everything that you can and you're just, you're really trusting and handing it over to spirit, source, the universe, however you would like to refer to that. So I can't stress enough that when you put everything that you've got into a project, blood, sweat, tears, your heart, your emotion, when you feel you've given it everything you have, then the best thing you can do for your sanity and the sanity of those around you is to just to let go. Because if you get really committed to one specific outcome, chances are it is not going to turn out the exact way that you thought. So this trusting piece is, Tessa, something you need to hear. It's funny how that always happens for me too. I talk to somebody, it's like, oh man, I needed to hear that. Or if I'm teaching something, it's like, oh boy, I really needed to hear that. But to get back to the fact that if you can trust in your higher power and source, the universe, God, spirit, whatever phrase that you use, if you can trust enough that A, you've done your best, and then B, you will receive whatever it is that you need to, that is for what I like to say, your highest good. Now, highest good, I should put a little disclaimer down here. Highest good doesn't mean it's what you think your highest good is. It's not what your friends think. It's not what I think. It's what Spirit, Source, God, Creator, it's what they believe is for your highest good. So when you can detach from outcome, you leave so much space for whatever it is that will best serve you to show up. And sometimes when we get things that aren't quite what we expect, it takes a little bit of practice over time to embrace the lesson in it. But that's the best way. I'm going to circle back around here to the managing expectation piece, is when you do your best, when you can just detach from the outcome by trusting whatever you need is what will come to you. Then think of the load of stress that's going to take off you. We're talking enormous loads of stress. Shoulders going down a little bit, sleeping better at night. So for those of you who have just joined us, I invite you to check out the free gift that complements this episode. So if you go to LeslieKarenHammond.com/3, Managing Expectations, there is a download there that you put your name and your email address into the little box there, press the button that says, yeah, sign me up, or something to that effect. And then you'll get the free gift that complements this, which has a few ideas that you can take and put into place to help you manage expectations moving forward. Because I know that you have important work to do in the world. You have gifts that need to be shared. You have people that count on you. You have people that love you. You have people that believe in you. So the goal of these Facebook Live sessions is to just offer something to help you shift your perspective just a little bit, so that ultimately you can show up as your best and serve those people in your life at a higher level. So I'm really glad that you joined me this evening, and I would love for you to share this with anyone that you think would benefit. So every Wednesday night, 6:30 Eastern, I'll be here and I'll have some little insight that I can share with you, and hopefully that'll make a difference. So this has been Leslie Karen Hammond, the Empowering Story Whisperer, because I know you have a great story and that you can inspire people with that story once you get comfortable with it, come to terms with everything in the past, and just start getting the word out there. So lots of love and light. I am so glad that you joined me this evening. Please feel free to make some comments below if there was something real specific that moved you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So take care. Bye for now.